What is going on YouTube? It is Primitive here, and today I'm bringing you a match that happened at the locals at RMC yesterday. This is going to be between myself on the right, playing the Hexeblaumon Old Force list that I posted on the channel yesterday, versus Joey on the left, who's going to be playing Black Toolbox. And so this was definitely going to be a very interesting match between two archetypes that haven't been displayed on this channel very often. And so I'm just digivolving into Lobomon here. This makes it so I can put my opponent at 1 and start building up into an ultimate. I'm going to want to try and get up into a Mega as fast as possible with this deck, preferably Hexeblaumon, because this deck, if I can trash a lot of the resources on the bottom, it's going to really slow down the deck. I decide to go with the Sworjo. My opponent's going to swing with the Sunoriza, which it does live, so if he doesn't digivolve on top of the Sunoriza, I am going to get the free Sworjo memory, but as we see here, goes straight into Gogmamon, putting me to 1, and so I will go to 3 with the Sworjo. Bolokomon going in the raising, so getting out that inheritable is going to be really important because the memory gain is really good, and there's going to be a lot of free opportunity to be trashing sources. The black deck does Digiburst a lot and has a lot of Digiburst cards, so if they do start Digibursting themselves, then they will be putting me in a better spot for the Hexeblaumon. So here we're going to see the Hexeblaumon come out, just trying to slow down the game. I only have one tamer out, so going for an Old Force doesn't really make any sense here because I'm not going to get the offensive pressure that I need. Sunoriza can be a bit scary because it can buff up a level 6 later, but we're just going to see a Blastmon in the raising, so I don't have anything to promote to really block the Blastmon hits. And also if they swing for security, I don't really want to block a lot of hits at the beginning because I wouldn't mind them going into security and hitting a few tamers. I am going to swing in with jamming security attack +1, so I hit the Zwart defeat, but then I can digivolve into the UlforceVeedramon here, and the when digivolving effect will unsuspend my Hexeblaumon, so now I don't get swung over by the Zwart defeat or the Blastmon. I can threaten to swing security attack +1 again next turn, and then if I can go into Ulforce, I can threaten to go for game, especially with having jamming on the Ulforce. So we're going to see 2 swings. But then we are going to see that my opponent will decide to digivolve into Zwart defeat, which is going to pop my Sworjo. So now the game plan that I had of going into Ulforce here is pretty much out of the way. You will see a couple instances of the camera potentially getting moved because I tried to set up my camera in the back of the room where nobody would go across, but of course people were going in and out the back door, so if you do see a couple nudges of the camera, I do apologize. But I am going to swing security attack +1 here, and then removing the reboot inheritable from that Zwart defeat can be helpful because if it does stay suspended, I could potentially try and swing over it or something like that if I wanted to. But the Hexeblaumon is currently keeping me alive because it is shutting down multiple swings, but I am suspended now. So right now I'm trying to dig for Omnimon because I don't have a tamer on board, so my Ulforce can't give the multiple swings that I need. So my out here would be hitting the Blitz Omnimon, swinging, and then digivolving one of the Megas into the Blitz Omnimon. So that's why you saw me digivolve and then Hammer Spark and digivolve on the bench, because I'm just trying to find the Omnimon. But as you can see, I whiff it, or else I would have played it already. And I'm thinking about what is the best option going forward because I only have 2 checks now to my opponent's 3 swings. So I decide that my really only potential here is to try and hit a Hammer Spark. I can't put my opponent to any less than 3 memory with the cards in my hand, so I just decide to digivolve instead of passing. And since my opponent's going to be at 3 anyway, that means that Hammer Spark is no longer that viable, but we're going to swing, and he swings over the Hexeblaumon using the effect to pop the Ulforce, swinging, and then digivolving for 1. I draw, I look at my top card, I see that I don't have anything going in for me, so I just go ahead and scoop it there because my opponent will just win next turn regardless of that bottom card being Hammer Spark or not. So going into game 2, I decided to go second because I want to try to get as many cards as I could. I did feel my hand wasn't as amazing as it could have been game 1. So I just wanted the extra card draw for that extra consistency to look through. I am going to start with a Davis here. I did have 2 Sorajos and the Davis in hand right now, so I know that I'm going to have a game where I'm going to have to hard play multiple tamers, but I decided to get the Davis out first. So 1 I can cycle, but mostly because I want the memory tamer. The Sorajo is not guaranteed to give me memory. As we see here, my opponent's just digivolving on top of these Digimon, so Sorajo wouldn't give me any value, as for Davis does give me some value and prevent me from getting choked. So as we see here, like I said, I do have multiple tamers in hand, so I just hard play the Sworjo. Since I didn't attack, my opponent gets a draw from the, I believe, Toy Agumon inheritable. So we'll get a draw at the start of the turn. Going to play TK, gains the memory, but it won't matter because I go to 3 at the start of my turn with Davis regardless. So another Vmon coming out. I would love to keep playing the other Sorjo here, but I can't put my opponent to 1 again because the Izzy does prevent them from being choked, so I have to find a better line of play. I just have a couple rookies and some tamers. My opponent's got a blocker champion and an ultimate, so I'm very far behind in development, and I don't have any Hexeblaus in hand. I know that my main game plan here is going to have to be to get Hexeblau out, because if I don't, my opponent's going to just be able to do way too many security checks with things like Blastmon and potentially Zwart Defeat, especially if a Ty and Matt come out. And so I decide to swing here. This allows me to trash the bottom 2 Digivolutions with Sorjo, and then Bukamon allows me to trash the bottom Digivolution source of the Dark Tyrannomon. So my opponent is going to block here, but I just wanted to try and trash some resources because I am going to be playing another Sorjo here, so I'm going to have 2 out. This will give me as much memory as possible if in the event that my opponent does play something without any Digivolution sources off of it, but I did put my opponent in the position where they can very easily put a level 6 on top of the Gogmamon and then go into raising and play around the Sorjos. But with the fact that I have multiple Ulforces in hand and no Hexeblaus, I don't really have the option to do anything else but try to set up my Ulforce, because like I said, my hand was so filled with tamers at the opening that I have to get them out and try to get this game plan going. The big downside is this Blastmon gaining 2 checks. Obviously, I can play out weaker things such as Gabumon or just any other rookie to be a pseudo blocker for the Blastmon, but the fact that it's out there can go into something like a Zwart or a Zwart Defeat is not very helpful here. I did evolve into the UlforceVeedramon with no effect, but with the multiple tamers out on board, the best thing I can do is try and set up for multiple swings with Ulforce next turn. I only have the 2 Sorjos on board, so I can't threaten an OTK without the security attack plus 1 inheritable, but the UlforceVeedramon was the only ultimate that I had in hand, plus the Gabumon comes out, like I said, as a pseudo blocker for the Blastmon. My opponent's still looking very strong though. Their board is just so much scarier than mine, and yes, I can go into an ultimate or into a mega next turn, but if it's not Hexeblau and I don't start trashing resources, then I don't see it mattering all too much, because my opponent just has so much pressure. They can pretty much set up to swing for game next turn and force me to have to block the Blastmon with one of my ultimates, or force me to play a rookie, which is going to even lower my progression for next turn and trying to go wide or go tall. So this Blastmon's really shutting me down, even though it's a very weird Digimon with its effect of being able to be blocked by everything. The security attack plus 1 pressure is really putting it on for me right now. We're going to see the Zwart Defeat come out here and decide to pop the Davis, which is going to make it so I can't have at least 3 memory, which in theory, if I don't have Hammer Spark, will make it so I can't go into Ulforce here. So I'm going to Digivolve the Gabumon. I'm looking to cycle. I need to hit Hexeblau. I really don't have anything else here. If I can Hammer Spark and go into Hexeblau and then start trashing Digivolution sources with the Sorjos, then that would be my quote-unquote win condition, as far as mostly just slowing the game down. But as we see, I'm going to swing, trash the bottom 2, unsuspend to gain jamming. And then we're going to keep doing it, swinging and then trashing with Sorjo to unsuspend, getting resources off the board. But like I said, without Hexeblau, it doesn't really matter too much because my opponent can still attack. I decide to Hammer Spark here because I'm not going to get too much use out of it, and this puts me at 1, so then I can play another Sorjo, because like I said, my hand is filled with tamers this entire game. This is the 4th tamer I've played this game. So now I have 3 Sorjos on board. I've pretty much put myself in a position to where my opponent either wins this next turn, clears my Ulforce, or I have a very high chance of winning next turn. So we're gonna hit Sorjos here and see now that I have all 4 Sorjos on board, quad Sorjo. So now if my opponent doesn't end the game this turn, I'm going to have an incredible amount of memory next turn, as well as be able to swing. But as we're gonna see here, they're gonna Digivolve into the Black War Growlmon, Digiburst, and since there's no target for the Digiburst, it's going to trash my top security, and unless that last check is Hammer Spark, the game is over. But it is not, so my opponent's gonna take it there. But that was a very good, very interesting game, so I hope you all enjoyed that. But with that being said, I will be back tomorrow with some more daily content, so if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day. Peace out.